What do you think of when you are asked about where you belong? Is it a place? Is it with a particular group of people? Is it with family or with friends? Before the age of 9, my place of belonging was in East Africa, with my German dad, my Kenyan mom, 2 brothers, and a dog. I felt at home in a small town called Diani, a tourist destination famous for its beautiful sandy beaches, its clear blue ocean water, and its picturesque palm trees that look dreamy on Instagram photos. My dad would take my brothers and I to the same German restaurant every single Saturday for lunch. And on Sundays, we'd go to a Chinese buffet. Then after that, we spend the rest of the day relaxing at a beach bar, listening to jazz music. And I remember loving Sundays. Probably because I was allowed to drink as many ice-cold Coca-Colas as I wanted to. Life is a journey. And at this stage, my journey was beautiful. And I had a full bag packed with exciting things and a bright future. Then suddenly, everything changed. I lost both my parents shortly after my 9th birthday in 2007. My brothers and I were moved from one relative's house to another. I felt like I was being dragged around and decisions were being made for me. It was like somewhere along my journey, I had been kidnapped and my beautiful bag was stolen away from me with a bright future inside. For months, I did not attend school. I did not see my friends. I did not see my dog or eat any of my favorite foods. I did not even have a bed to myself. I felt confused, disoriented, and traumatized. All of a sudden, I was now on a journey with no destination. As a 9-year-old child, I had lost a sense of home and a sense of identity. Who was I without my parents? And without their warmth, where did I belong? At the age of 11, I was adopted by my auntie and moved to Switzerland to live with her and her family. I was glad and excited that things were actually finally going well. My new family was very supportive. They showed me unconditional love and guidance. In my bag, I had now acquired a mother, a father, new siblings who gave me a great opportunity for a good future. My tag changed from orphan to adopted, yet I still did not feel like I belonged. Why, I wondered. In my bag, I had all the things that I ever wanted. Safety, security, opportunities to travel the world, opportunities to eat German food, eat Chinese food, listen to jazz music, and drink unlimited Coca-Cola. This bag was different. But it was still beautiful. Everybody was complimenting its design. However, my shoulder was still aching from all the weight of adapting to a new home culture, new country, new language, and the cold climate. And as these things piled up, I noticed that there was a visible difference between me and my peers. My peers had parents. I did not. My tag said adopted. And I remember feeling lost. I just wanted to fit in at this point. My auntie told me that she noticed I would change who I was depending on who I was around. And I think subconsciously, I was just trying to blend in. As soon as I turned 18, I packed my heavy and uncomfortable bag and moved to the UK with the idea that Birmingham is more diverse and I would find people who are more like me. Without much thought, I chose a random university. I picked a kind of interesting course and I lived at the first available room that I found on Spare Room. At this point, all that mattered was my desire to be normal. And my hopes of fitting in the UK were crushed as soon as I got into Aston University. I quickly noticed that I was being judged based on my skin color. And there were assumptions of how I should behave as a light-skinned girl, a term given to mixed-race people in the UK who are assumed to be vain, self-centered, and arrogant. For the first time, I realized that my race was relevant. And this seemed like another disruption in my journey. Instead of the move making my bag lighter, it had just added more baggage to it. I was now a light-skinned girl with no parents, studying something that I wasn't passionate about, and living in a very uncomfortable house. I felt disappointed and lost. So, I was lonely, and I only had my bag to keep me company. Fast forward, 2 years later, studying early childhood here at UWE, I realized that what I was feeling was actually completely normal. I came across a psychologist called Bowlby, the pioneer of the attachment theory. I learned that a sense of belonging is actually a fundamental human need, established already before birth, with mother and child connecting in the womb. After birth, the child is literally tethered to their mother and must be physically disconnected from her. Biologically, there are no questions to whom a child belongs. For 2 decades after birth, the relationship between mother and child is meant to strengthen, giving the child enough security to be able to navigate the world confidently and independently. In my case, the opportunity to build this strong emotional bond between me and my biological parents was taken away from me before the end of my first decade of life. I understood that what I was feeling along my journey was a normal consequence of a disrupted attachment. So after I quit Aston University, I took a trip back to Diani, my first place of belonging. And when I arrived, I was shocked by the state of the house. It was not a home anymore, but a house of ruins. The roof was falling down, the painting was different, my dog had died, the house felt smaller, emptier, and hollow. It was not the paradise that I remembered. And I was disappointed, so I cried, remembering all those beautiful times I'd spent in that house with my family. The feeling was not the same. I thought somehow that I would reconnect with how things were in the past, and I would reacquire that bag that I lost all those years ago. But I did not. So I asked myself, where do I belong now? If it's not in this place, then where? Is it with people rather than a place? Is it with family, with friends, or something else? This bag was different, its contents were different, but it was still beautiful. I had people who supported me, and I had people who cared about me. So I decided to be intentional. I decided to draw a map of where I wanted to go so that it could help me navigate the rest of my journey. For the first time in my life, I realized that I had the power and the maturity to decide what belonged in my bag. One thing I knew for certain is that I wanted to change. I wanted to go back to university, and with the great support of my auntie, I carefully picked the course, the city, the university, and what impact I wanted to have. At UWE, I realized that my bag was getting bigger. The straps were getting stronger, and the quality was incredible. I had developed self-efficacy, self-discipline, self-confidence, and I was starting to feel confident in the connection that I had with my auntie and her family. For so long, I thought that belonging was a place with a particular group of people. But my experiences at UWE made me realize that belonging is a feeling deep inside of you rather than a physical entity. And it is this feeling that had developed deep inside of me that helped me achieve things that I never thought were possible. With the help of my loved ones, I realized that I can use my past to understand my present. But it is what I do in the present that helps me guide my future. Despite the unexpected turbulence, walking through storms, climbing up mountains, and almost drowning several times, I was able to fit some successes into my bag. I had the power to change my tag from orphan or adopted to first-class graduate of the University of the West of England. And it was really important for me to make sure that student voices are heard, so I was involved in the student body. I also became the diversity and inclusion representative so that students who felt like they did not belong finally belong. I really wanted to remain connected to Kenya, so I was involved in the East African Society, and eventually I was voted president of the society. And honored by the recognition, I wanted to make a real difference. So, my team and I, we developed some very meaningful events, focusing on the impact of climate change on Africa. And by the end of the year, I was overjoyed to be recognized for excellence and inclusion on the university's Black Hall of Fame. But the most meaningful thing that I ever did was I raised funds to build a playground in Uganda so that children, disadvantaged children especially, could have the opportunity for a real childhood, one that was taken away from me. Leaving UWE was a bittersweet experience. It was a place of growth for me. It was a place that turned my journey's route from heading towards failure to heading towards success. And as sad as I was to leave, I knew that my next steps would just lead me to an even better place because success breeds success. Earlier this month, an article I wrote about my undergraduate dissertation was published by the Early Childhood Studies Degree Network, and overnight I'd become a published academic writer. Currently, I'm pursuing a master's degree at the University of Bristol, studying psychology of education because I am passionate about unlocking human potential through an understanding of how humans learn, how we internalize our experiences, and how we acquire knowledge about ourselves and about the world around us. With clear intention, I decide what goes into my bag. Family, good friends, and pursuits that I'm passionate about. As long as I have my bag with me, that is where I belong. And I thrive when I feel like I belong. And that is my story. Thank you.